Hey everybody, it's Annabelle Fisher and I'm here still in Nepal and we have a couple of days left. If you don't know me, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a mama to our black cat Midnight, and at the moment I am grabbing life with both hands and making my one life count, and that's why we are in Nepal for 2 weeks because on August the 8th I learned that I have 2 months to live. Now, if you don't know me, that isn't as shocking as it might sound, because I have been journeying over the last 3 years through ovarian cancer, stage 4 ovarian cancer, and it's been recurrent. So in those 3 years I've been diagnosed 3 times. And I was last diagnosed in May of this year, 2018. And it was at that point that I decided I wasn't going to have any more chemotherapy. I wasn't going to have any more alternative treatments. I was just going to continue to live my life. I made the conscious decision I was going to stop trying not to die, and I was going to start living. So my husband and I embraced bucket list item number 1, which was returning to the UK in June, and we visited, wonderful, all the places that I had grown up knowing and loving, my old secondary school, where I went to sixth form college before university, where I went to university in Scotland. So we went for a big trip down memory lane. And now we are doing item number 2 on the bucket list, which is returning to the country where we first met. My husband's Canadian and I'm from the UK, and we met in Nepal in 1995. And in 1997 we came back here to teach English for a year. And so we have amazing friends still here. And the last few days have been magical and miraculous as we reconnected with these wonderful, wonderful kids. They were kids when we were out here. They were young teenagers, and now they are adults married with their own families. So it's been a wonderful journey of reconnection and, real deep friendship, and just feeling the hugs. I think that was one of the most important things. I'm a very auditory learner, so I like hearing supportive things and being told that I'm loved, but I don't think I realized how powerful it was until I hugged both Kavita and her brother Amber and felt those hugs. That was so visceral. It felt very, very strong, very powerful. And I thought, yeah, that's 21, 22 years of friendship there. Anyway, I digress. I am doing this series called The Untethered. And you may not have seen my last video. I explained a little bit about the phoenix rising, so I'll just briefly mention that to you. Over the last 3 years, I have felt very much like the phoenix, especially when I was recovering from cancer, when the prognosis was good and I was no evidence of disease, NED. It felt like the phoenix was coming up and rising, and I felt like I really embraced that phoenix. But sadly, inevitably, there was something that dragged the phoenix back down again. I never felt that she was fully free, or I felt like she was tethered, as though she had something wrapped around her ankle that just kept dragging her back down. And I truly feel that, having learned that I have 2 months to live, which was, I found out on August the 8th of this year, 2018, the phoenix has been untethered. I really feel like she has gained that sort of inner force and fire, and she is now free. So this series is The Untethered, and this is the 3rd episode. One of my biggest desires was that I would complete and publish my 2nd book. But sadly I've run out of time to do that. So I'm hoping that these videos will be something that's left that people can dip into and get a sense of who I am, and a little bit about my vision and my ideas and my experiences. So today is quite a poignant day for me because yesterday was September the 1st, and I know certainly in North America where I live in Canada, this is a long weekend, and I believe it's the same. It's certainly the same in the States and Canada, and perhaps there's other places in Europe. But it's quite a poignant weekend because after the weekend, the kids go back to school, and I feel like everybody starts kind of getting excited about rebirthing and the fall coming, and preparing for the year ahead and so on. And so, yes, I was quite aware when I looked on Facebook. A lot of people had posted, yay, it's September and this is great and all the rest of it. And what happened for me when I realized it was September was, wow, August went fast. The 8th of August was when I was told I had 2 months to live, and wow, we're already in September now. So that was very sobering. And even though Michael, my husband, and I are in Nepal, and we're having an amazing time, I think it really brought me back down to earth. It's like, wow, okay, the clock really is ticking. And I think I felt vulnerable, which I hadn't felt. I have felt very grounded and very centered, but I did feel a little shaken yesterday. Ooh, the 1st of September. August seemed to be all about planning and decluttering, and friends helping me sell things, and it was very focused and organized. And then we made the trip out here, and then September, it now reminds me that when we get back from Nepal this week, we have 1 more week, and then we are moving to the UK, which is where I've decided I would like to pass. I want to be with my family, and I want to be with my friends who I have known for most of my life in the UK. So yeah, it seemed like the door opened a little wider for me, and I was more aware, I guess, of my future situation. So what I wanted to highlight in this video today is, as I mentioned, I think, in one of the other videos, the community on Facebook has been quite overwhelming in the most beautiful way. So much support for me when I've been posting photos and little stories about our time in Nepal. So much love, so much support. I've been very humbled because I decided to do these videos and to post on Facebook because I felt like it was a catharsis for me. It was a way of, I don't want to say healing, I'm not quite sure that that's happening, but it was a way of me sharing, and I guess I could have written it in a journal, but I felt that there was sort of something that allowed others in if they chose to come along for the ride. And I've just been blown away by the generosity and the open-heartedness. And I felt that I was going to do this. I would get something out of it. I would be the one who benefited. But what I'm learning from many of the comments and the private messages that I'm receiving is other people are benefiting from it too. And in what ways, it's not for me to say. But I feel very honoured that you have shared that. And if what I've written or what I've said in a video has helped in some way or inspired you or helped you focus, that's fantastic. I'm truly happy, and I feel incredibly honoured. So what happened yesterday was one of my dearest friends, her name is Ingrid Dinter. She lives in the States, and we've never actually met physically in person, but we speak pretty much several times a week, and we've been in one another's lives for, oh goodness, I don't know actually, but probably nearly a decade. And she posted the most raw and real letter, really, about what it was like for her. Let me just read, hang on. She said, what do you do when your dear friend tells you she has a short time to live? And what she wrote was incredibly helpful to me because I know how I feel about this situation. but I can only begin to imagine what Michael feels, what my parents feel, what my friends feel, what people observing feel. And the way that Ingrid wrote helped me understand a little more what that must be like for someone. And so I thought a little more about what can a loved one do? What can somebody do when they learn that someone is in a crisis? And it doesn't have to be that somebody's life is about to end, like mine, but that they are going through a crisis, that that perhaps we really don't know what to do. If we were in that situation, we wouldn't know what to do. But I've been sort of witnessing how my friends and loved ones have been dancing with my situation. And the video that I did last, I talked about feeling very privileged that I knew I was dying. I think my situation is very unique because in some ways I've been preparing for this for 3 years. And particularly this year, I've spent a lot of time decluttering, sorting out files on my computer, getting rid of all sorts of things in my office. Michael and I wrote new wills. I mean, there's been a lot of preparation for this, so it hasn't been massively urgent and panic-stricken. But for some people it is, when they find out they only have a matter of weeks or months to live. So what could we do? How can we support people in that way? And so I'm going to give some ideas, and I just want to preface this by saying, please no, I'm not saying this is truth. I'm not saying this is the way it must be. I have no right to do that. This is just what I've observed and what I've come to appreciate. So as I'm in it, I think it might be quite helpful to hear what I've got to say, though I say it myself. All right. So one of the things I wrote was, what can a loved one do? Well, they can ask. I mean, so my friends are just awesome. Ingrid did that. That's the first thing she asked me. What can I do? Now, there has to be a realism here. What can a friend do who lives the other side of the world to you? I'm in Canada. The majority of my real close friends are in the UK. I mean, what can they do? They can't pop round and put the kettle on. But there's all sorts of things that they can do. So with Ingrid, I said, I want to be able to talk to you. So we FaceTime one another. She has been such a massively important person in my life, giving me chemotherapy advice, having gone through chemotherapy herself. And so she's been like a mentor to me in how to work through cancer. But now we don't need that in our relationship. This is now something different. So what can she do? Well, she can be there to listen, or she can make me laugh. Or one of the things that's important for me is knowing how her daughter is, who's about to start university. I want to be part of that. So I think one of the things is we might hold back and think, oh gosh, well perhaps if they need me, they'll tell me. But I think it's crucial that you ask. Ask, what can I do? And then if the person says something and you know that you just don't have it within you to do that, or that would be stretching you too far, or you just don't know how to do it, then you can say, I'm sorry, I can't do that, but can I do something else? So asking. A lot of my friends locally are very proactive, and they have been phenomenal in getting things done. So one of my friends immediately said, I can sell a whole bunch of stuff for you on Facebook Marketplace. And she's done that. And she's made me a whole bunch of money, which is going to help get our cat to the UK so I can live out my days with her. Another friend spent yesterday, I've just found out, shredding all my client notes and other paperwork. Again, just hours of work that I don't need to do. I mean, how generous-hearted. So if you have friends that are action-oriented and love to get in there and do, my husband's a doer, take advantage of that, or take the opportunity, allow them. I mean, a lot of my process over the last 3 years has been about letting go and allowing that support. It would be wonderful if I could do all this, but it's just impossible. I don't have the energy. The next point is, I've heard a couple of people say to me, I just want to be strong for you. So perhaps you felt like that with somebody. You want to be strong for them. They're going through a crisis and something awful is happening. And I guess my question might be why? Why must you be strong for them? Now, I feel that I am pretty strong myself. I don't need anybody else's strength, but what I do need is them to be themselves. I need my friend to be who she or he is. Rather than suddenly morphing into this very strong person. They're probably strong anyway, it's part of who they naturally are. But I don't need strength and, oh, I'm strong and I'm not going to do this or I am going to do that. What I want is the real deal. The person that I've always loved showing up and simply being themselves, whether that's a total goofball that makes me laugh, whether that's somebody jumping into action and getting something organized in my house, whether that's somebody who's going to extend their arms and hug me and let me cry. That's what I want. I don't particularly need somebody who's doing something to be something. I want the person to be themselves. And the other thing I wrote down was, I think there's a balance between, because I love raw, I love real, and I would want all my friends to be completely authentic with me and share exactly what's going on for them. I think that that's important because I know I'm blessed that my friends want to know how I am and they're very happy to sit quietly and listen. And I hope that I offer that space for them too. But I think in these sorts of situations, there's a fine line between being honest and sharing that this is hard, but then sort of dumping the crap onto the person who's in crisis, and in my case, who's dying. And then it sort of becomes all about the person who's grieving or sad or in shock or whatever. So, for example, I've heard, this is really hard for me and I don't know what to do and I don't know what I'm going to do when you're not here. And that's probably very true. I don't doubt that. But what can I do about that right now? Not very much. So that sort of thing isn't particularly helpful. So I don't want to sound harsh, because I think there's a fine line. I think I want to know how my friends are. I honour them and I respect their feelings. But saying things like, I just can't imagine life without you in it, or this is so hard for me, I've never had to go through this before. Well, no shit. I've never had to go through this either myself. So I think it's sort of a careful balance in what we share with the person who is in the crisis point, or like I say, in my case, who's coming to the end of their life. And I don't think there is a right or a wrong way there, so I can't possibly say what you should do or should say is this, but I thought I'd just throw that out to give us some ideas to people. And then finally I put, I don't have the capacity to carry you. And let me be clear on what I mean by that. Is that doesn't mean that my open-heartedness closes down and I don't give a shit about you. No, not at all. What that means is I'm not in a place to grieve how you're feeling with you, if that makes sense. I think that many of my friends are doing an awesome job of I don't know if this is true, but I imagine it is, of talking to one another and supporting one another rather than expecting me to hold a space for them as they grieve me. But here's the thing, I do have the capacity to totally be connected to stuff going on in your life, because all my friends are freaking amazing and they've been right here for me, but they have busy lives. All of my friends have big things going on in their lives, which they are needing to attend to. They can't just push it under the rug and pretend it's not going on. So I thought I'd give you an example. Two of our dearest friends in the States are just going through the very complicated and completely overwhelming yet exciting and joyful experience of adopting. And one of my biggest dreams is I won't get to hold their son as I had hoped I would, but I will get to see him on FaceTime. And when I spoke to my friend Sarah the other day, we had a lovely conversation while I was here. We probably talked for about an hour about what's been going on for them in this process, and the highs and lows and complications and all the rest of it. And I believe, and she said I was, but I believe I was very present. And I'm glad. Of course I'm present. This is her life. This is a massive thing going on. I want to be part of it. So I do have the capacity to be part of that sort of conversation, but I don't have the capacity to hold a space for her as if she were to say, oh, this is really hard for me and I don't know what I'm going to do and all that sort of thing. So I hope that that kind of made sense. I hope I haven't come across as a real biatch who doesn't give a damn about anybody else. And then the final thing, I just wrote down Sheryl Sandberg, and she is the CEO of Facebook, I believe. Beautiful, phenomenal woman. I've heard her interviewed several times, but there was something I heard, I think it was earlier this year, she was interviewed on BBC Radio, and she was talking about her husband who, unlike me, didn't have the privilege of knowing that he was going to die. I believe he had a heart attack and he dropped dead. And one of the many things that she said, which I found incredibly poignant, and she's so articulate as she talks, is she realized when people asked her, "How are you?" it was a very ineffectual and quite useless question, because I'm paraphrasing, but she implied, like, how do you possibly tell somebody how you feel about that situation? And she added a word at the end of the question, how are you? How are you today? And I really love that, and I truly believe that's what you can do for a loved one who is dying. You can ask them, how are you today? I had chronic fatigue syndrome, ME, about 15 years ago. And my dad was really good at that. And we never discussed it. It's just something he innately did. He'd see me in the morning and say, "How goes it this morning, Annie?" Or in the afternoon, "How are you feeling right now, Annie?" He would always sort of chunk it down into that moment rather than how are you feeling in general, which was, pretty lousy. How are you doing today? I find that a very easy question to answer rather than this sort of nebulous, how are you? So I think that's my lecture over now. This was a really long one. I hope you've stuck it out with me. So I'm going to say namaste from Nepal, and I will probably not do another video while I'm here, but I'll do one when I get back to British Columbia. And again, I want to thank you for your love and your support. It means the absolute world to me, and I feel so connected and so loved, and that is what I wish for you too. So namaste, and we'll talk again soon. Bye bye.